Now for Global Business Updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good Monday morning to you, Dr. Abasi. Good morning. Rufa in Abuja studio. Good morning to you as well, and all our viewers out there. We begin with oil. It looks like there's some, I guess you want to call it risk-off sentiment with oil, because it was trading much higher in the morning. It's come down a bit. It seems like traders are saying if the Strait of Hormuz isn't blocked and actual Iranian facilities are not particularly targeted, maybe there might be some reprieve. I mean, still, it's high, 74.53 for Brent, West Texas, and then Nigeria at $75 a barrel. I want to start off with Nigeria, particularly with this new directive we have on the CBN. But let me just back up a little bit. So we talked about higher oil prices and why oil-producing nations want them, right? So for Nigeria, you'll have an accretion to your FX reserves. You can also pay down foreign debts. You have more FAC allocations, federal accounts allocation, committee allocations to the states. You've got more fiscal room. For the upstream oil and gas industry, you've got more revenues coming in, and particularly you're able to pay down debts. Now, why do I bring this up? The oil and gas industry is the most leveraged in the country in terms of the amount of bank loans to particular industry. I think manufacturing is second. So banks in Nigeria also want higher oil prices because these upstream companies are able to service their loans. So that now brings me to the Central Bank of Nigeria and the circular that they put out on Friday, the 13th. This was particularly specific to some banks that are under regulatory forbearance. Now, regulatory forbearance in plain English is just an easing of regulatory rules on banks to give them some room to breathe. So you might have banks that have higher NPLs, non-performing loans, than the threshold, or a capital adequacy ratio. Basically, that one just means do you have adequate capital to buffer you against shocks and losses and so on and so forth. For certain banks that have been under regulatory forbearance, they are saying that, look, as of June 30th, I think they're going to end that. You cannot pay dividends to shareholders or bonuses to senior executives or make investments in foreign subsidiaries until you are out of the regulatory forbearance and you meet the established thresholds. In plain English, we are looking to get bigger banks that can fund big ticket items in Nigeria because the administration wants to have a bigger economy, and the banks are central to that. If you're going to have bigger banks, then your risk-weighted assets are going to be bigger as well, and so they want to make sure the central bank wants to clean it. Now, the central bank has telegraphed this since last year. We all know that in 2026 of March, that's when the deadline for the new capital thresholds are going to be. That's why you've seen all these banks doing capital raising. So the pushback here, of course, for some shareholders is that, nobody has any sympathy for the bank executives that are not getting their bonuses. And then for foreign subsidiaries, those investments take time. But for shareholders, there's a fear that there might be a sell-off. We'll see what happens in the banking stocks later today, because they might want to know which banks are under regulatory forbearance. Shareholders want their dividends, right? And then there's also mechanisms like, LLPs, loan loss provisions, which are already in place to allow a bank to make a provision for a bad loan. So some pushback, okay, why is the CBN stopping them if that's already there? Well, the CBN is saying, look, we've been telling you we want to clean up the sector. We want to make it larger. We want to make sure that everybody's within those regulatory thresholds. So this is temporary, again, just for those banks that are under those under regulatory forbearance. So again, big ticket items brings me to the long discussion about the International Conference Center in Abuja, right? Which has, as we all know, has been remodeled at a cost of $39 billion, which at an exchange rate of 16.20, I think that's about it's $24 million, right? We've talked a lot. Whenever we have the Africa CEO Forum, which we cover here every single year, or the Arise News, we go everywhere. Davos, we're all over the world, the conferences we cover. We keep talking about why can't Nigeria host these conferences here? Well, we don't have the size, right? We don't have the capacity. And so, what is being put forward here in terms of bigger conferences is that you're able to attract investment, you're able to attract delegates, you're able to bring the biggest and the brightest into your country by having a center that is able to accommodate them. And if you compare us to the Kenyas, the South Africas, the Egypts of the world, we fall short. So which is the reason why this renovation was put forward. And if you think about the justification, to me, it makes sense, right? In terms of being able to play at the same level as other countries that are able to attract these delegates. What's the capacity of the Hilton in Abuja, which is the cream of the crop right now? I think it's about 200, 300, 400 people. You need something that can be able to host 5, 6, 7,000 or more people in terms of that. But then that still ties into wanting to have big ticket items and essentially a larger economy. Going forward from there.
Sounds like whitewashing.
Well, I mean, look, Dr. Masi, you're free to comment. Please go right ahead. Still on Nigeria.
Monday morning.
Hey, on Monday, we have all the topics here. I think the NGX is the next topic to touch on. They reached a new high on Friday. So we are at 115,429 points, 71 basis points week on week increase. Our market cap is now at 72.7 trillion. And then in line with wanting to have bigger banks, a bigger economy, these are publicly traded companies. This flows into having a bigger stock exchange. You've already talked about the Dangote refinery and the fact that they are going to be expanding distribution of diesel and PMS across the country. They already provided the details of that. 4,000 CNG trucks are going to be mobilized. You're going to have 1,000 extra CNG stations. And for everybody who has been saying, oh, where's the CNG? Where's the CNG? You need to have a private sector buy-in, a big company like a Dangote refinery that is going to be, making these purchases and investments in CNG in order to reduce the logistics costs for companies that need PMS, and also for at the retail end for individuals as well. So yeah, in the notice that they put out, they already listed out how they're going to be making this investment, and it's part of the Renewed Hope agenda. I think finally, just on the international front, in terms of what to watch this week. You've got the G7 that's beginning today. President Trump has already said he's attending in Canada. Tomorrow you've got the Paris Air Show. I think that's already kicking off. We know that Boeing CEO is not attending because of the tragic crash in India. Wednesday we've got the Federal Reserve and their rate decision. They're expected to hold and talk about what's happening in oil and gas. Thursday, we've got the Bank of England. I think they're expected to hold as well. Funny enough, Wednesday, we get CPI for the UK before the decision and then Sunday, I'm jumping ahead, nothing really on Friday, but Sunday, Tesla is supposed to roll out their robo-taxis. So we'll see what happens there.
I can't wait for those robo-taxis. Let's first cross to Abuja to Rufai, so we make sure we touch on him. Rufai, your thoughts on the business stories of the day?
Okay, so a couple of things, Rotus. It's not for the want of big halls that we don't have big conferences. You were talking about Transcorp. Hope you know now that Transcorp has a new branch now that can take a lot more people, apart from the Congress Hall you used to know before. That was recently opened. Secondly, the Africa CEOs Forum that both of us have gone to a lot. Hope you know that hall in Abuja in Sofitel is not the biggest of halls. And you remember how we used to cramp ourselves inside that hall. But it's because the Ivorian government incentivizes it for them. As regards to international conferences, nobody's saying anything is wrong with international conferences. All we are saying is accountability. Rotus, if that place was built for 240 million as a 1991, with the exchange rate of about 9 naira or a little over 9 naira, it's about $25 million as a den. Today, the renovation cost is $25 million. The question is, let's just seek accountability on how the money was spent. A breakdown, the tender, what it involves, transparency. That's all we're asking for. And we have a right to ask for it if we truly want to run a country. Secondly, as regards crude oil prices now looking up for us, yes, marketers are also looking with bated breath. In fact, the projection was prices ought to have gone up. I'm sure you saw the JP Morgan projection that worst case scenario, we should be getting about $130 per barrel. But I'm not sure we're going to go to that level. The strait is still very, fluid. People can still pretty much go through it. The Strait of Hormuz, why it's symbolic? It's a very narrow strait, 33 kilometers in radius. But about 20-25% of most of the oil from the Middle East goes through that strait. And it's been a center of contention and attraction all this while. I'm sure why marketers are also pretty much rest assured is based on what Donald Trump did tweet on Truth Social, or did Truth on Truth Social recently, when he said, people don't really give me credit for all the work I do. I'm working behind the scenes. Things might peter out very soon. So let's see how that pans out. And now that we have heard that it was Trump that actually disabused the idea of them going ahead to kill the Ayatollah, So I think things should pan out. And I think at the G7 summit, they should also talk about it and things should pan out. And kudos to CBN on that decision, that banks in forbearance, it's not the time to give out bonuses and all of that. Let's just temper things down till things go back to good territory.
All right, so I'll focus on the power of allowing private businesses to flourish in your country, which is what we've seen. We've seen Dangote fight this fight. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been smooth sailing, but we've seen him do a balance of, power brokering, negotiation, playing to ego when he must, fighting when he must. But now we're getting to a point where he is about to own the entire value chain. So the people who were shouting monopoly probably woke up with high blood pressure this morning or yesterday when the communique went out, because once he starts drilling oil, he's the entire value chain, which is an asset and also a concern in many ways. However, with the CNG and so forth, it brings me to the topic of when private also partners with government to make things work. And that takes me to the International Conference Center. Rwanda has been able to build a conference economy. They have a significant amount of GDP that's generated just from hosting conferences. But what did they do? Yeah. The government partnered with private sector. If you look at the biggest conference center they have in Kigali, it was built, it's a $300 million conference center that has a 5-star hotel and so forth and so forth. But the government only owns a minority stake in it. So I think that if we are trying to make Nigeria a conferencing destination, it should be private sector led. Government should be there just for regulation and for, to make sure permits are done and so forth, overseeing role. I don't think government budgets right now should be spent on, building these edifices when there's much more urgent priorities.
Okay, Rotus, before you joined us, I was drawing attention to the fact that the conflict between Israel and Iran has sent tremors through markets, whether it's in Germany or in France or in Italy or France CAC 40, Germany's DAX, London FTSE, and also affected oil. You've already pointed out, increase 0.22%, Brent crude, and also WTI. Spot good has also risen. And, there's a lot of caution, a lot of nervousness among investors and, markets generally. Now, second, the list of events this week, yes, Bank of England looks like they're going to keep rates at 4.2%, yep. 25%, that's right. 4.25%, yep. Bank of England. US, we are going to have a rate decision on Wednesday. Yep. Now, 97% of the analysts who have commented on this are saying that, look, the Federal Reserve is not going to cut rates. Right. Trump is insisting rates must be cut, but that's not likely to happen. The Paris Air Show is also happening this week, but the big issue will be the Boeing Dreamliner accident affecting Air India. Kelly Otberg's first attendance at the Paris Air Show, but when he goes there, it will be all about Boeing and planes, crashing within 1 minute of taking off. The group of 7 is meeting in Canada. Those are the major highlights for this week. China's May retail sales came in at 6.4% yep. for May. The projection for May, yes, the projection was 5%, yep. and better even than what they had in April. Yep. And the whole idea is that consumer demand has gone up. And why has it gone up? They've increased visas for tourists. There's a trading demand strategy. Stimulus has been provided. But can China sustain it? Those, I think, are the major issues. And then finally, Dangote Refinery, saying it's going to sustain distribution and all that. The big point, which I didn't mention initially, was about what they call a petroleum equalization fund. Yep. Now, this is a case of the private sector helping the Tinubu administration to address that problem. The Tinubu administration was the first administration to deal with that scam called Petroleum Equalization Fund. Yeah. Now you have the private sector coming in to even make it better for Nigerians. However, what are we doing about the refineries? What are we doing about NMPCL depots that are moribund and pipelines that are moribund. What are we doing about the midstream petroleum agency? All these things will need to be looked into. Midstream, downstream, which have created, opportunities for waste within the value chain, to use your word. So we should also think of the implications of what Dangote Refinery has done, which is historic, in my view, because we, the people, will be the ultimate beneficiaries. So thank you, Alhaji Dangote, but we will need to see the real impact. Yeah. Then we'll be here, we will talk. Nobody can gag us. We will say the truth. Anyway, thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.